The boardroom was filled with polished marble, sharp suits, and the smug confidence of men who thought they owned the world. At the far corner, invisible to everyone except the faint squeak of his mop, stood Samuel Green, the building's janitor. He was quiet, always quiet, cleaning late nights and early mornings, never saying a word. To most of the executives, he was furniture, background noise in their kingdom of glass and steel. But that night, everything changed. "Why is this man still in the building?" The CEO's voice cracked across the room like a whip. His name was Richard Langston, a billionaire who had built his empire on intimidation, exploitation, and arrogance. He stared at Samuel with thinly veiled disgust. "This is a board meeting, not a subway station. Get him out of here." The room chuckled. No one dared defy Richard. Samuel looked up slowly, his calm brown eyes locking onto the CEO's. "I'll be leaving soon, sir, but you might want to finish this meeting before you make another mistake." The room went silent. The janitor's tone wasn't timid. It was steady, unshaken, almost dangerous. Richard smirked. "Another mistake? My only mistake is letting people like you linger in places you don't belong. You're nothing but a mop and a bucket. And after tonight," he snapped his fingers at security, "you're fired." Two guards approached, ready to drag Samuel out. But Samuel didn't flinch. He set the mop aside, pulled off his worn janitor's gloves, and carefully folded them on the table. Then he reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a crisp leather folder. He placed it in the center of the table with deliberate precision. The room leaned in. Inside were stock certificates, ownership contracts, and a bold corporate seal with one unmistakable name: Samuel Green Investments, LLC. The executives gasped. Richard blinked, unsure if this was some kind of prank. Samuel's voice cut through the silence. "I own 30% of this company. I walked into this room not as your janitor, but as your largest investor." The guards froze. Richard's smirk faltered, replaced by a twitch of unease. But Samuel wasn't finished. "You see," Samuel began, pacing slowly around the table, "while you were busy firing workers to buy another yacht, I was buying shares, quietly. Every dip, every stumble, every time you thought this company was too powerful to fail, I was there, watching, investing." He paused at the window, gazing out over the glittering city skyline. "You looked at me and saw a janitor, but I looked at you and saw a man digging his own grave." The room was dead silent except for the faint hum of the city lights below. Richard slammed his fist on the table. "This is ridiculous! You think a piece of paper makes you my equal? You'll never sit at this table. You don't have the pedigree, the education, the power." But Samuel cut him off, voice calm yet razor sharp. "No, Richard, I have something you never will. Respect for the people who built this empire, the janitors, the assistants, the clerks you never saw as human. Without us, this building doesn't shine, this company doesn't run. You built your empire on their backs. And now, it's about to collapse under the weight of your arrogance." The executives shifted nervously. Some were already avoiding Richard's glare. Samuel slid another document across the table. This one had a single line highlighted in gold: "Vote of no confidence, CEO removal clause." The executives gasped again. Richard's face went pale. "You're bluffing," Richard hissed. But Samuel leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. "Try me. The board doesn't need you. They need stability. They need leadership. And tonight, they'll see who truly deserves this seat." The room exploded into murmurs. For the first time, Richard Langston, the untouchable titan of industry, looked small. One by one, hands went up. Votes cast in silence, but the meaning thundered louder than any words. By the end, it was unanimous. The CEO had been dethroned. Richard staggered back, veins bulging in fury. You'll regret this. You'll all regret this." But Samuel simply picked up his folded gloves, placed them back into his pocket, and whispered, "No, Richard. The only regret here is yours, that you underestimated the man holding the mop." The boardroom erupted in applause. Justice, swift and poetic, had been served. The narrator's voice broke through. "This story reminds us of a powerful truth. Never underestimate people based on their title or appearance. The ones you dismiss today may be the very ones holding your future in their hands. Respect is not optional, it's survival." As the boardroom cleared and Samuel stood alone by the window, his phone buzzed. He answered, his voice low. "Yes, it's done. Langston is out." A pause. Then Samuel's face hardened. "But we have a bigger problem. Someone's been moving against us behind the scenes. Double the shares and prepare the board. This fight isn't over." The camera zooms in on his cold, determined eyes. The boardroom had emptied, but the echoes of Richard Langston's rage still lingered in the marble walls. Samuel Green stood alone, the city lights glittering behind him like a million watchful eyes. He had dethroned the tyrant. But victories like these never came without enemies. That night, as Samuel gathered his documents, a slow clap echoed from the doorway. A tall, silver-haired man in an immaculate navy suit stepped inside. His voice was smooth, but his eyes were sharp as blades. "Well played, Mr. Green. Very dramatic. But you should know, Richard Langston was never the true power in this company." Samuel studied him carefully. "And you are?" The man smiled coldly. "Victor Kane, majority shareholder. And unlike Richard, I do my homework." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were pages of Samuel's private life. Bank accounts, property deeds, even his charitable donations. "I know who you really are. The janitor turned investor, the man who thinks respect can be bought with stocks and sentiment. You're clever, but this is my empire, and I don't lose." The next morning, the news hit the airwaves. Breaking news. Anonymous whistleblower exposes corruption scandal tied to Samuel Green Investments. Stock prices plummet 40% overnight. Executives panicked. Phones rang off the hook. Investors demanded answers. And in the chaos, Victor Kane moved like a vulture, buying up shares Samuel had fought years to acquire. Samuel realized the truth. He wasn't just fighting for a seat at the table anymore. He was fighting to keep everything he had built. Late that night, Samuel sat alone in his modest apartment. On the wall hung a faded photograph. His father in overalls, hands calloused from factory work. Samuel remembered his father's words. "Son, they'll never give us respect. We have to take it, not with anger, but with patience, with strategy, with discipline." That's what drove him to work janitorial jobs by day, study finance by night, and quietly climb the ladder no one saw him on. His father had been underestimated. Samuel had been underestimated. And now, Victor Kane was making the same mistake. The next board meeting was packed, tension thick in the air. Victor Kane sat at the head of the table, smiling like a king. "I hereby motion to freeze Samuel Green's shares pending investigation into fraudulent activity," Victor declared. Gasps rippled through the room. But Samuel didn't flinch. He reached into his briefcase and laid out a set of documents. "While you were busy buying panic-sold shares, Mr. Kane, you forgot to check one thing in the bylaws. This company still honors employee stock options from 20 years ago, and I've been buying those too." The executives leaned in, eyes widening. "In other words," Samuel continued, "I now control 45% of this company, which means your little coup is over, before it even began." Victor's smile faltered, but only for a moment. "You're clever, but you're still playing checkers, while I play chess." As the meeting adjourned, Samuel walked to his car in the underground garage. That's when he noticed it, his car door already ajar, his documents scattered across the seat, and taped to the steering wheel, a single photograph. It was his daughter, walking home from school. Beneath it, scrawled in red ink, "Step down, or she disappears." This battle is no longer about stocks and boardrooms. It's about power, corruption, and the lengths men will go to when they feel their throne slipping. Samuel thought he was fighting for respect, but now he's fighting for his family. Samuel clutched the photo, his hands trembling, not with fear, but with fury. His phone buzzed, an unknown number. He answered, his voice steady. "Touch my daughter, and you'll learn why I was never just a janitor." The caller chuckled darkly. "Oh, Samuel, you're not fighting a CEO anymore. You're fighting the man who owns the city." The line went dead. Who is really behind this? Should Samuel walk away or fight back? Comment below. Follow for part 2. Must watch!